Nicole.
Hey, what's up, Aaron?
Hey, I was just wondering, I'm struggling writing a transitional lesson plan for my transitional readers. How do you go about writing that plan?
Great. I was actually just doing my plans. You want me to share it with you?
Yeah.
Excellent. So the first thing I do is I go to, when we went to that PD, and Ms. Miller gave us the folders. So I go to my folder, and I go to the actual lesson plan template, and I look at exactly what am I expecting the scholars to do. So if I look, I'm going to talk to you about the introduction to the book. So if you look here, it talks about what you're going to do. It says for the book intro, you're going to get a gist statement, preview the illustrations to introduce unfamiliar concepts, and then you don't want to do every page. So the first thing I always do is to get a gist statement, I always read the book first. So I'll give you a book. I have a book here, and I have a book for myself, and I always read the book first because I'm going to get that gist statement to see like what is the book going to cover, and then I also look for unfamiliar concepts that the students might not know. Because remember, our goal is always to provide the scholars with things that are going to help them get through the book. So we want them to read as independently as possible, so we just kind of want to give them a little clues, some tools to help them as they're doing the reading by themselves. So we're going to look at this book. This is Florida Everglades. It's Plants and Animals. So the first thing, I always start the children with is the book going to be fiction or nonfiction? Because we want to reiterate all the different genres for the students. So I'm just going to read the book, and I'm going to look for any words that the students might struggle with or anything that might interfere with their comprehension, because that's going to be the teaching focus, is to monitor for comprehension. So I'm just going to read it a little bit, and you can follow along. It says, scientists call the black bear Ursus americanus, which means bear of America. I already know Ursus americanus. They're not going to know that word. So I'm just going to give it to them. So I'm going to write on my sticky note that I know that when I go through this book intro that I need to give that to them. The thing is when you're giving the words to them, you don't want to give them more than like 3 a page, like 2 or 3 a page. That's just way too many. So you want to pick a book that's appropriate to them, where it's not going to be like 10 million words on the page. Because if you do that, they're not going to comprehend it. They're going to be so worried trying to decode the text than actually understanding the text. So then it says there are different kinds of black bears. My students should, be able to digest that. One of them is Ursus americanus floridus. So now I see that this word is now repeated again, but it adds floridus to it. So now I definitely know that I need to highlight that word because they not only see it one time, they see it 2 times. So, you read the whole book. You're going to, make all your stickies, okay? So then after we finish, let's say we read the entire book, so then we're going to do a gist statement. So for my gist statement, I'm going to say, this book is about, we read the book, we see that it's about Florida Everglades, it's plants and animals. So the first thing I'm going to say is, this book is about Florida Everglades, it's plants and animals. Now when I do my preview walk, I always highlight the words find and frame on the same page as the picture. So as we talked about before, I would say, okay, what do we see on page number 3? And then I'll say, we see a black bear. And I'll say, okay, class, another word for a black bear is Ursus americanus floridus. So when you see that word, that's the word for black bear. Let's find that word on page number 3. Okay, and then we also hit already the unfamiliar word, and then also the preview of the picture. All right, so next what you're going to do is you want to set your purpose. So in the documents that Ms. Miller gave us, if you look, this is for our transitional readers, levels 18 through 28, so it tells us all the skills and strategies. For my students, I always work predominantly first on self-monitor for comprehension, because that's what we want them to do by themselves. We want them to make sure that what they're reading makes sense. So I'm always going to have some sticky notes for them, and I'm always going to put that for setting my purpose. So when I'm speaking to the children, after I've introduced the book, I'm going to say, okay, now it's your time to read. It's our time to read about Ursus americanus floridus. And I'll say, so today when you're reading, I want you to make sure that you are monitoring for comprehension. That means you're asking yourself questions. If you get stuck, I want you to use your fix-it strategies. So you can either give them an organizer, which I have here, that helps them to monitor their comprehension. So they can ask themselves important parts, things that are surprising, connections, their favorite parts, just a little something to help them jog their mind. Or sticky notes are the best, because once you train your kids how to use the sticky notes, it works wonders. And then also I would do a teaching point. So a lot of times the teaching point that I like to do is I always like to focus on fluency, because they read the cat went and that interferes with the comprehension. So I always take apart and I'll say, okay, so when we're reading today, your reading should sound like this. Your reading should sound smooth. So it should say, you know, actually the black bear lives in both places. So when you read, that's how I want to hear you read today. And then I would have them start reading, and then we would go to the door and reading section. But most of the things that you need, if you go to, I'm not sure if your folder is blue, but my folder is blue. And then you have the Focus for Small Group Guided Reading Instruction documents, and you also have the template. So if you just really just follow along through what's on here, you should be in good shape. And if you have more questions, come and see me.